Hey, what's up? This is Nisi of Spoil Me Nisi, back with another video. Today I would like to do a short video about the show Good Girls that is on Netflix. I've seen some advertisements about the show for a while. There's about 3 seasons now. The new season just came out, which is season 3. So I figured what better time than now to get into it, catch up on it, so that I know what I'm looking at when I watch season 3. So if you haven't already watched the show, or maybe if you're some episodes behind in season 1 or season 2, just so that you know, my videos always have spoilers. So just beware before you watch this video, and let's get into this. So I have very mixed feelings about the show Good Girls. Now, one thing that I'll say is that if you can tell from like previous videos that I've done about like maybe like crime shows or different things like that, I usually have like a love for like the underdog or like the main character. And I tend to like root for them. I tend to like, kind of root for them or like hope the best, because I tend to look at the circumstances leading up to a character doing whatever actions, but I think that this is the first show where the main characters, I don't really sympathize for them, and I actually really hope they go to jail, honestly. So all in all, this show is about 3 women who all had certain negative circumstances that made them feel like they needed to turn to a life of crime in order to turn their lives around. But from the start of it, it's just been a train wreck. The 3 sisters are Ruby, who is best friend. Well, not 3 sisters, but 3 women who are Ruby, the brown skinned one, who is like a sister to Annie and Beth, who are actually sisters. So I'll start out with Annie. So in season 1, I really did like Annie a lot, even though she is the hot mess of the trio. And I had like a love for Annie in the first season because I sympathized with her situation, being a teen mom, and about to lose her kid, and she almost got raped in the first season as well, so I was kind of rooting for her, and kind of rooting for her to like, put her manager in jail that tried to rape her, but in the end she couldn't put him in jail because he knew that she had robbed their store, and she, like an idiot, admitted to it. So at that point he kind of had that held over her head, so she couldn't. So all in all, I was rooting for her like season 1, because I sympathize with those aspects of her storyline. But as you get into like the end of season 1 and season 2, Annie is a hot ass mess, and she knows it too, and I think that it hurts her that everybody else notices it as well. Her kid notices it, her ex notices it, even though he loves her. Ruby everybody notices it. She's just a mess, and I feel like she sabotages the girls unintentionally the whole entire show by making mistakes that I feel that only a person who's a complete idiot would make. From watching the show, one thing that I can say about Annie, though, if it's worth anything, is that I think that out of all 3 of the girls, she seems more of like the criminal type than her sister and Ruby. Like when you look at Ruby and when you look at Beth, they can kind of get away with like this whole image of not being criminals, but Annie, you kind of look at her, I don't know, she just kind of has like a look where, or a personality where you're not really surprised that she chose a particular life of crime. I think that because, she does things that kind of like sabotages the girls, I think that because of that, I'm not a big fan of Annie, and I'm certainly not rooting for her in the show. But I do find it interesting that she's, that in the show, 1, she was like so close to being raped, and then there have been a couple of other scenes where men have been like, I guess, disrespectful towards her. So that kind of like softens my heart towards Annie while watching the show. But yeah, no, I'm not team Annie whatsoever. Next, you have Beth. So she's like the HBC, the head bleep in charge. But she doesn't have what it takes to actually be in charge. So I get it. She went into the life of crime because, hey, her husband, he's a douchebag. She was a stay-at-home mom and she was taking care of the kids while he squandered away their money and slept with all of these women that he worked with, messing up her trust and messing up the security of their family. So because of that, she decided that instead of getting a real job, going into a life of crime was what she wanted to do. But what makes me not like Beth very much is, one, I honestly feel like she's doing this for her, not really for her family, because as you watch the show, Beth is well connected. She knows women. She's held in high regards by people. If she wanted to get a regular job or do regular stuff, she really could have. She did not need to go into a particular life of crime. She's doing this to get a rush, and she's doing this because I believe that she has the hots for Rio. All of the girls were on their way out of this whole life of crime. They were about to get away with their original crime, but she decided to open the door back up with this guy Rio, that they are, I guess, kind of working with now or working for now in the show, up to a certain point. So I do believe that out of all the girls, out of all the main characters, I do feel like Beth is the most selfish. She's on like a power trip, and whenever she's given a chance to show that she is a real gangster, to show that she can make those difficult decisions, she chokes, and she's making bad decisions throughout the whole show. In fact, I feel like most of the decisions that Beth has made contributes to them going down a long line of committing crimes, because she's making like just a ton of crummy decisions. So I'm not big on Beth. I'm actually hoping that she goes to jail as well. Not rooting for her in the show at all. I was kind of rooting for her relationship with Rio because he's very handsome, but he's a little scary, and I'm not really certain of I guess how the writers of the show wanted him to be. He's a little sinister. He's a tiny bit sexy, but I think he's more sinister than sexy. I was kind of rooting for them a little bit to get together, but rooting for her to not get with him. But in the end, she ends up having a sexual relationship with him. But then she starts to, she turns on him a couple of times. One time, she shoots him. In her defense, he shot her husband. So I guess they're kind of squared there, and then before that, she tried to get him put in jail, but he got out. I'm still trying to figure out who this guy is, if he really is a gangster. Me personally, I think he's a Fed because of how things ended with him in the second season. Now he's working with the Feds, and, it's kind of making me wonder, like, who exactly he is. Me personally, I don't believe he's really in a gang. I don't believe he's really a gangster guy. I believe that he's somehow in the Feds, and I think that's going to come out in season 3, but I could be wrong. We'll see. So finally, of the 3 main characters, you have Ruby. I loved Ruby in season 1, and she's the only one that when I look at her circumstances, I can kind of sympathize with her a little more for why she chose the life of crime that she chose. Now, in Ruby's defense, even though it does not, exclude her from blame, all of the stuff that they've been doing have not been her idea. Ruby is way too close to Beth and Annie. I think they're a really bad influence on her, and she's just kind of like running with them. They're coming up with all these ideas, and she is a yes man. In season 3, she doesn't want to accept that she's a yes man, but she is. She doesn't want to do any of the stuff that she's doing, but she's doing all this with her best friends. Now, she decided to go into this life of crime with these 2 crazy women because her daughter was on the verge of dying because of kidney failure, and she needed money to pay for these great medicines, money to get her a new kidney, and all of that stuff is very expensive. So even though going into the life of crime is never a good thing to do, when you look at her story, you can kind of understand why she chose such desperate measures, even though it was wrong, I guess. So for that reason, I was really rooting for her throughout the show. So where I stopped rooting for Ruby is that her husband was like about to go down because of her actions with Beth and Annie. So, here's the issue that I have with these two. Stanley, he's a good man. Out of all the men in the show, Beth's husband is trash, and then you have Annie's ex who's married, and then all the guys that she gets with, they're trash too so far in the show, like that Fed guy, trash. Out of all the guys in the show, Stanley is like the best one, and he treats Ruby like a queen. I thought that was really good representation for black men, not to make it about race, but just being honest, how I was thinking. I think that was really nice to show a good representation of black men in the show, because in a lot of shows, they show them in a negative light. So I really liked that in the show. What I didn't like in the show is that, he had come out from a dark place, and he became a police officer, giving him some status, good job. At that point, Ruby didn't have to keep committing crime and doing what she was doing. She really could have cut off ties, a whole bunch of times with Annie and Beth, but she continued to do it so much to the point that he found out. He ends up protecting his wife. Well, really protecting Beth, but he had to protect Beth to protect his wife. And he ends up getting fired from the police department and arrested, and is facing a lot of time in jail. It's kind of messed up. And the part that I think is messed up about Ruby is that, she seemed a little bit too comfortable, in my opinion, with the idea of her husband going to jail. She was given an out to snitch on Beth to get her husband out of a bad situation. Now, I know it sounds wrong to say that a person should switch, but that's her husband, Her husband already has certain odds against him. All the other husbands are fine. Beth's husband literally helped her launder money. He hired a hitman. He did all these bad things. He's not facing jail time. None of the men in Beth or Annie's lives are in any kind of trouble, but Ruby's husband, Stanley, he was down, he came up, and Ruby's actions brought him all the way down again. And she didn't really do much to help him get out of it. She was so hell-bent on protecting Beth and Annie that even Beth came to her senses and said, hey, Ruby, I'm going to turn myself in because I'm the leader of this thing so that Stanley doesn't go to jail. And Ruby seemed more upset at the idea of Beth going to jail than she was upset at the idea of her husband going to jail. And I think that's very problematic so far in the show. So, right now where I am in the show of season 3, haven't started it yet. But season 12 kind of ended weird to me because, I don't really know where, if her husband's going to go to jail or not. I'm hoping that he doesn't. And I'm actually hoping that Ruby, Beth, and Ann end up being the ones to go to jail because I think the show turning in a way where Stanley ends up going to jail and not Beth and not Annie and not Ruby, I think is kind of messed up. But I think it's a little bit realistic. I mean, all 3 of these women committed crime, and Ruby, being the brown lady, and her husband are the ones that seem to be getting in all the trouble. So, I don't know. You can make your own speculations there. I don't know if I want to go down that road that leads to more conversations that I don't want to get into. So will I continue watching the show? Yeah, I guess, I kind of like it. I really just want to talk about the 3rd season, and I had to watch the first 2 to get into it. If I had to rate the show on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it an 8. I think it's nice, but I don't like the main characters. So I'm going to finish season 3 and, God willing, make the video giving my reaction to it. So that's a wrap for this video. If you've already seen the show and you have some comments, please let me know. I would love to talk about it. Subscribe to this channel so that you get updates whenever I drop a video, and make sure that you like and share. Until next time, peace.